Hello everyone, this is Pooka and welcome to another Pokemon TCG video. Today we're going to look at a deck that has taken regional championships by storm. You know, a deck everybody expected to do well, Donphan. Wait, what? Donphan? Yeah, you heard that right. Donphan decks have been doing extremely well at regional championships in the standard format. That's day one of regional championships. Now, I would say not many people would have predicted this deck to be so popular and so successful, but at the recent Houston Regional Championships, I believe 3 or 4 of the top 5 players in day one of the regional championships were running a Donphan deck. Now, I don't have their exact deck list, but I can give you a rough idea of what's going to be in this kind of a deck. So we have covered Donphan a few times on this channel already, but let's take a look at him once again. He's not an entirely impressive card by any means. 130 HP, pretty good for a stage 1 non-EX, but spinning turn, 40, and then you switch with one of your benched Pokemon. Now, at face value, 40 is downright bad, but 40 turns into 60 with a strong energy, turns into 80 with a muscle band, and turns into 100 against a Pokemon EX with a fighting stadium. So now that 40 damage turns into 100 damage, and now we're knocking out Pokemon EX in 2 hits with Spinning Turn. So we can also Spinning Turn and switch into a Pokemon, which is going to be what this deck strategy is all about. Now originally, people thought Donphan and Trevenant was a great idea, you know, switch into Trevenant, take away your opponent's item cards. Turns out it's a little clunky, doesn't always work too well, and Yveltal EX kind of slaps it down. So instead, we're going to go for a simpler route and just kind of run basic Pokemon as walls. First one's going to be Sigilyph, Safeguard. Pretty straightforward. We're going to stop those Pokemon EX from taking quick prizes by shoving up a Safeguard Pokemon. Spinning turn, switch into this guy. This can slow down your opponent by 1 or 2 turns sometimes, and it can be just enough for you to get a couple extra attacks off and win the game. Now, if your opponent has an answer for Sigilyph, we have some big 130 HP Pokemon. Zekrom is a good one. I know you can hardly see there's a Zekrom in here somewhere, but rest assured this giant chunk of gold is a Zekrom. There's a name here. Now, 130 HP is the selling point here, but Outrage against an Yveltal EX or a regular Yveltal can be very good against anything that's weak to lightning. Right? If you just take a hit, you can Outrage right back. And again, 130 HP is not the easiest amount to hit just to knock out a basic non-EX Pokemon. So we have Zekrom and then Kyurem. This is going to be used mainly for Landorus EX. We can switch into Kyurem. And then if they decide to hit you with a Hammerhead, you can Outrage for a knockout, basically. They're weak to water, so we have these 2 big Pokemon to shove up there. We also have 2 Safeguard Pokemon. There are all sorts of different Pokemon you could run. You could run Reshiram. You could run, you could run Hawlucha if you want a free retreater to switch into. All sorts of different stuff you could do as a wall, but these are probably the ones you'll see the most. Now, Yveltal EX has come back with a vengeance. It's been extremely powerful in the standard format. So we're going to run also a line of Raichu. Circle Circuit just allows us to knock out Yveltal EX in 1 hit, and also that pesky regular Yveltal. That thing is annoying for Donphan. It resists fighting, it's not an EX, 130 HP. Normally takes at least 2 hits to knock out, sometimes even 3 for a non-EX, and that's not good for Donphan. So Raichu can help us out quite a bit. And we also have one of these little guys, Dedenne. Energy short 20 times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Say an Yveltal EX has 5 energy, we can knock it out with energy short since it's weak to lightning. Pretty cool. We can also use Muscle Band to add a little bit of damage. The coolest part of this, I think, is if your opponent has 3 energy on an Yveltal EX, this also goes for Lugia EX. We can just slap on a Silver Bangle. It'll add 30. And Energy Short can do 60 plus 30. That'll be 90 times 2. That can knock out Yveltal EX and Lugia EX if they have 3 energy on them, just for 1 energy on this little 70 HP Pokemon. So this is a card we may start to see a little bit more of in the game. All right, so basic strategy going to be to spinning turn, switch into Pokemon here, use Raichu if we need to. But let's not forget Donphan also has Wreck. 80 plus 60 if there's a stadium in play, then you discard it. I mean, that's base 140 if there's a stadium in play. Then we get Strong Energy, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium. We're going to be knocking out EXs with this attack, so it's a very nice finishing attack to use Wreck. Okay. Now our supporters, we have 4 Professor Juniper and then 4 N. We're also going to have 3 Chorus. And we're going to go with 3 Karina as well, since we can search for fighting Pokemon, namely the Donphan line, and also gets an item card. And then 2 Lysander. Just a very good card in this kind of a deck, since we're going to be doing 2-hit knockouts pretty frequently. Dowsing Machine for the Ace-Spec card. 4 Float Stone just to give our walls some free retreating, so we can, send them out. Then if they survive, we retreat them next turn. Seems pretty good. We've already seen the Muscle Band, the Silver Bangle, the Fighting Stadium. Got 4 Ultra Ball, search for our Pokemon, and then 2 Startling Megaphone to keep our abilities. We might not need 2 Startling Megaphone in this deck, but hey, better safe than sorry, I suppose. And then we have 4 Strong Energy, 2 Fighting, and 4 Double Colorless. We don't need a ton of energy in this deck since we're going to be switching to the bench quite a bit, but we do have these energy as well. Now, this is probably not the ideal list, just kind of threw it together as an example of what a Donphan deck might look like. There are all sorts of different cards you could throw in here. There's many, many different ways to build this deck, but this should give you a good idea of what the deck is supposed to look like. All right, so let's take a look at a quick game of play it on Pokemon TCG Online. See the big bad Donphan in action. My opponent is going to start off the game by showing me his hand twice. Doesn't have any basic Pokemon. And we saw a lot of fighting stuff and a Raichu. So I wonder if this is a mirror match. It's certainly something fighting with Raichu. But we're going to start off with Zekrom. Probably not the greatest Pokemon to start with. Especially against a Landorus EX. We are weak to fighting, and Landorus can do silly amounts of damage with Strong Energy and Muscle Band with that Hammerhead, especially when I'm weak to fighting. So let's see. There's a Muscle Band to start, or not a Muscle Band, a Strong Energy to start off. So Hammerhead automatically doing 50 damage here. Of course, times 2, it'll do 100. Very fortunate that my opponent cannot attack going first anymore. And extremely fortunate because if my opponent could attack going first, I would lose the game. Let that one sink in. My 130 HP Pokemon would be knocked out on the first turn before I get to draw a card if my opponent could still attack going first. So very happy about that rule change. Very, very happy. All right. So we start off with a lot of different stuff. I'm just going to drop down the Karina here, search out a Fan piece so we can get that into play, and start setting up the big old Donphan. Boy, as I play this Karina here, I realize I probably should play different item cards to make Karina a little better. All I really have are Tools and Ultra Ball and Startling Megaphone. I guess Dowsing Machine too, but maybe something like a Bicycle or Professor's Letter or something a little more complicated might have been a little better here, but I don't know. We'll think about that later. All right, so I will play an Ultra Ball here. I would like Zekrom to not be knocked out on this following turn. So I'm going to Ultra Ball, discarding a Megaphone and a Strong Energy since I'll probably have to Juniper. And I won't be able to use both Strong Energy before I do that because I'm going to grab the Kyurem. Right, let's retreat. Put down a Muscle Band and a Double Colorless and Outrage for 80 damage. Take that, Landorus. Now, if Landorus wants to hit me, he's going to get Outraged for a lot. And if he doesn't hit me, well, I'll just Outrage again. And I'll be happy with that. It's 130 HP on Kyurem. Pretty difficult to knock out with this fighting deck, at least early on in the game. You're going to go for 2-hit knockouts, and can't really afford that against a Pokemon that's going to outrage you for a lot since you are weak to water. So Kyurem definitely showing some strength here. Mainly forgotten Pokemon. It is reprinted in the Legendary Treasures set, originally from that Noble Victory set where it saw a lot of play with that Glaciate attack initially, and then Pokemon just kept getting bigger and bigger and EXs happened, so Glaciate not so great anymore, but hey, that's still a pretty decent card for the typing and the outrage. So, oh, my opponent actually will use Hammerhead there. Oh my goodness, that means Kyurem is going to be doing a big amount of damage here. Pretty cool, I would say. Turn 2, we're going to get a knockout on a Landorus EX thanks to this big Kyurem. And it's a non-EX, so that's pretty sweet. So let's go with the Outrage for 220 damage on the second turn. Good job, Kyurem. Also, we did play the Startling Megaphone to discard the Muscle Band on that benched Landorus EX. That way, it'll be a little more difficult for my opponent to get a knockout. I have 60 HP left, so if my opponent uses Hammerhead right now, it's 10 short, and then I just Outrage for like 8,000 damage, since I'd only have 10 HP left. So my opponent needs another Strong Energy or a Muscle Band, or can attack with Mewtwo, I suppose. Alright, so that's... I can't really expect Kyurem to survive 2 attacks in the age of EXs, but it was nice to think about. There is the X-Ball for the knockout. So my opponent will take prize number 1. Just going to promote Zekrom with the Float Stone. And okay, we have Donphan ready to go at this point. So Fighting Stadium going to come down. I could Dowsing Machine, grab a Supporter out of there, but I have to discard a bunch of tools or Lysander. So I'm going to save the Dowsing Machine for a little bit later here and just play the N for 4. And we can just go ahead, retreat. And I have this Fighting Energy I could attach to the active just to prepare for a wreck, perhaps. But if I do that, my opponent could easily play a Lysander and an Energy and then X-Ball the Donphan for a knockout. So instead, I'm going to keep the 1 Energy on Donphan, not make it a bigger target for Mewtwo. Just spinning turn to the bench and push up that Zekrom. Now, putting the Fighting on Raichu is probably a waste because I only run 2 Fighting Energy in the whole deck. But I guess the important thing was not to put it on Donphan. Perhaps just holding the Energy would have been better. You can't put a Strong Energy on Raichu, and then if I put a double colorless, then I pretty much wasted the Fighting anyway. So, in hindsight, putting the Fighting Energy on Raichu, not the best move, but better than putting it on Donphan, I think. That would be very risky. Alright, so at this point, we're still up a prize. Got that Zekrom up there. It'll probably get knocked out, but we have Donphan going. With the Muscle Band, with the Fighting Stadium, the Strong Energy, we're hitting for 100 damage every turn, and that's going to take its toll. My opponent has to take 5 prizes. We don't play any Pokemon EX, so that is 5 knockouts. And we're going to be able to just keep pounding away with spinning turn over and over and over, and eventually just wear down these big EXs. And if I can get enough energy in play, we can start to wreck for a 1-hit knockout. Maybe get a Lysander on a benched Mewtwo, and before you know it, we'll be winning the game. Just a Hammerhead right there. Gonna hit the Zekrom for only 60 and hit the Donphan for another 30. So after the chorus, gonna spinning turn again for 100, just switch back into the Zekrom. And things are looking pretty good. Now, if my opponent can switch to the bench with this Landorus EX, it's going to be a little bit annoying, since it'll be another Pokemon that I wasn't able to finish off. I don't have a Lysander in hand right now. But it has a 3 retreat cost. We've seen Float Stone used already. We've seen Switch used already. So there is a chance my opponent just doesn't have a way to switch Landorus out of the active spot. And if that's the case, we'll just spinning turn again and get a knockout and then be down to 2 prizes. That's pretty good in my book. Alright, so we see a full bench of Pokemon coming out from my opponent. We see a Trubbish and a Pikachu, so all these Pokemon are coming out of the woodworks. Didn't even know my opponent played any of those. There is the Hammerhead finishing off Zekrom once and for all. Just going to promote the Raichu. Sits it as the free retreat. And here, probably going to chorus for a lot of cards. Let's Ultra Ball first. Get rid of a couple Float Stones. I don't think I'll need quite that many at this point. Gonna grab Donphan just to make sure I have another one ready to go. Right? If the other one gets hit by Lysander and knocked out. Don't want that to happen. Gonna bench the Dedenne and, let's spread the energy out a little bit. Make sure I just have attackers. Or if we see a Pokemon catcher or something like that, and an N, could be left in a bad spot if I put all my eggs in one Donphan basket. So let's drop down the Muscle Band. Now we have 2 Donphan ready to spin back and forth and just keep hitting for damage. 100, goodbye, Landorus EX, and now we're down to the 2 prizes. I'm just going to sacrifice the Raichu at this point, collect my 2 prizes, and, things are looking great. My opponent still has to take 4 knockouts, and I just have to knock out 1 more EX to win. So EXs have pretty much dominated the game since they've been out. But little decks like this sometimes, with efficient damage, hit and run kind of tactics, they can overpower these EXs sometimes. And it's kind of funny to see. Like we've seen Empoleon sometimes be able to duke it out with the EXs. Not so much anymore, but Donphan certainly strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the EXs. And by that, I mean hit and run away into a wall. Hit and then run into something that can take a hit. Because Donphan probably won't be taking many hits. Okay, we do see a Lysander. Go figure. And it's going to bring out the Donphan. Get hit by Hypnotoxic Laser. And then we'll probably see Mewtwo. Well, probably not Mewtwo because I win the game if that attacks. But Landorus EX going to come up for the Hammerhead. And actually, my opponent played the Lysander, so there's no N, and that means my Lysander stays in my hand. And that means, boom, we can bring out the Mewtwo, and spinning turn for the knockout. Didn't even have to use Wreck that time. But rest assured, Wreck is pretty darn good, too. So there you have it, guys. Donphan, a deck that has taken the tournament scene by storm, spinning its way to victory. And I guess Curum is helping out a little bit too. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will certainly have some more for you soon. I am Pooka from the Top Cut, and I'll see you guys next time.